Hello, everyone. Cindy Drozda here. I am going to do something a little different today. I said it was a surprise in the description of the webinar, and well, what I'm going to do is turn a material that I haven't turned before, and so this should be fun and exciting. I'm glad to have all y'all joining me here. Scott Hampton, yes. Well, we all have been wondering. Jim, great to see you here, and David, good to see you. James, Harry, yes, another David. We got a lot of Davids here. And I love seeing all of you here with me. Roy, good to see you. And Dick, yes, waiting for my big surprise. Yes, Dieter, good to see you here. I shipped some tools to Germany last week, and we don't know how many months that's going to take to get there, but hopefully not too many. Howard, great to see you here. Thank you all for joining me. This is a really fun time. And yeah, good to have people from the UK. And I saw somebody from Ontario a while ago. And so, yeah, Mr. Crazy Coach, I don't know who you are. Sheila from North Vancouver. Yes, great to have you here. Some people have these pseudonyms here. Oh, yes. And Martin, another UK from a different part of the UK. I'd love to go to Scotland one of these years. Okay. Well, so before I get going with the actual thing here, I want to go through my usual talking about the calendar of events for wood turning in my part of the world. So if we can get over to here again, I am here in Erie, Colorado in my workshop. And thank you all for joining me here from all over the world. I love seeing you post in the chat where you're from. It's quite a worldwide group here. What a great time. Indeed. I do these live streams every 2 weeks, and so does my friend Todd Rains. He does his on Fridays at 2:30 p.m. Central, and I do mine on Thursdays at noon Mountain Time, which would be 1 p.m. Central. And he's next week, and I'm this week. So you can always see one of us every week, unless something weird happens. And in the case of Todd here, 2 weeks from, let's see, what would it be? Next week, his next session, when he would be on, he's going to be at the TAW Symposium. So you can go see him in person there. That'll be really fun. And me, I will be in 2 weeks. Get back over here. Tomorrow, I am having a free sharing and Q&A session. And that is a Zoom meeting. That's where you can come and share pictures of your work or share the pieces themselves, ask questions, talk about your process, share your latest aha moment. I love it when that happens. The way to get the link is to go to my website and subscribe. There's a QR code for you, or you can actually go to my website here. And if you need to find me, and none of these links are clickable, I realize, you can just Google me. One of my neighbors said he was talking about me, and he's not a wood turner. He doesn't know much about it. He knows I do something with wood. So he Googled Cindy Woodworking, and I came up. So there you go. It's not hard to find me. Might be hard to find some people, but certainly not me. And I am also, oh, no, this is Lyle here. Sorry. Let's get that off of there. Some of my friends do live interactive remote demos too. And Lyle Jameson is doing one day after tomorrow. So I'm here today and I'll be on Zoom tomorrow. And then Lyle will be on Zoom on Saturday. And that's at 3 p.m. Eastern. And you can find him on his website. I think I've got it here, but he again is easy to find. But you got to type past Lyle, because if you type just Lyle, you get a bunch of other weird things like Lyle Crocodile. I don't think he wants us to call him that. So yes, join my friend Lyle on Saturday, and then you can find me here at the Woodturners. What is it? It's Meet the Woodturner Live is what this one is, and I'm looking for a link for it. Oh, here we are. Let's get that one off of there. I've got a link for that one. Here. If you type in the code Cindy, you'll save £5, which is a little more than $5, I think. And that's the Woodturners, or Meet the Woodturner Live 2. Now, I get all these things with woodturners in their names mixed up, but this is going to be a lot of fun. You see, it's originated out of the UK, but it's not just UK turners, and there are a lot of people you just don't normally see at this one. So I hope you'll come visit us all, and I will be there. I'm doing a vendor demo on Friday. Ah, yes. Turning finials. Well, I'm glad to see women doing some turning and some finials too. Yeah, it's nice for her to have learned something. And I hear what you're saying. Laws of thirds. It isn't exactly how I would put it, but let's get through with the calendar of events first, and then maybe we'll talk about proportions. This is what I'm going to interpret that as proportion philosophy. I don't have laws I follow. I have some guidelines, and it's probably not what people expect. Anyway, so let's get on with things. Are we all done with events? No, we have another one coming up. We'll get rid of that there. I am doing an IRD on February 4th, and I'm calling it an opal tower box. This one does not have the opal inlay, but the one I do in the demo will have an opal ring inlay done with UV resin, which is the coolest stuff, right where those two beads are at the joint line. So this tower box is it's a step up in challenge from my umeke that I did last time, but it's still a really nice forgiving box with a lot of variation possible, a little bit challenging inside shape, that you can accept the challenge for or not and still have a great box. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. And I don't have the subscription stuff up on my website yet. Coming soon. Got a busy week this week. This week I have had demo yesterday, this live stream today. Tomorrow is a sharing session, and Saturday I'm going to watch Lyle. Okay, so yeah. Hello, John from Ontario. It's great to see some Canadians here. I hope you're not snowed in. I know Minnesota is pretty snowy. And I think what John's referring to here, he had the question about rule of thirds, when you can break from using that method. And yes, I am not a one to stick to rules and laws in my turning. I have a few guidelines that I usually don't break, but hey, rules are made to be broken, and guidelines are just to direct you in a direction that you might want to go. So yeah, I don't follow the same rules all the time, and I think there's a lot of variation there. All righty then. So what am I going to do today? Oh, okay. Here's the thing about Australian woods. Yes, I find Australian burls. You talk about wood, and then you talk about burls, and we're talking about Australia. Australian wood can either have a burl or not, and they have some wood that's real nice to turn, like West Australian she oak is just wonderful. Looks like lacewood, but it's easier to turn than lacewood. Wonderful stuff. A lot of their woods, like Jara and some other ones, are pretty challenging. They're hard and abrasive. Um, Burls are a whole different story. And burls with their mixed up grain going in every direction, I find usually they are easier to turn because they don't need you to be so conscious of grain direction. You can often cut a burl either way, but then also sometimes they tear out no matter what you do. Australian burls are going to be harder, more brittle, and more abrasive. Not all of them. There are some that are not that way, but a lot of them are real hard. And you'll find that turning an Australian burl is a step up in challenge from turning, like, let's say, a Oregon maple burl. So not all burls are the same, although they share some characteristics. Not all Australian wood is the same, nor is all North American wood, but they share characteristics quite often. So yeah, keep the questions coming. This is your day here, and I'm not really stuck on making a project or anything. I'd like to experiment with this new material I found to turn. But if you have a question, please type it in like John's been doing. I appreciate that a lot. I'm going to talk about proportion a little more when I get to my turning. So what am I going to turn today? I am going to turn this piece of butternut. It is something I have never turned before. So when you start with a new material, there's always a little experimenting to do, and I've got a spare one in case I need it. And if that doesn't work, I've got this. I don't know, is it a Banksia pod? I've got this here that I can try to turn also. Just yamming it up a little bit here. So, all right. So what am I going to do to mount this on the lathe? So Scott, he's always good for a challenge and some good fun. He's going to turn along with me live. I love it. Can't wait to see that. And Scott's done this before, and it's a ton of fun. So yes, indeed. Challenge yourself and have a little fun. Okay. Here's uh, the puns. Yes, indeed. I wanted to put this one up there. The golden rule and how to use it in wood turning. So just to clear things up, I think you probably meant the golden ratio, because the golden rule is do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And as that applies to wood turning, absolutely. When you see a beginner post a dog bowl on Facebook, give them a compliment. Don't get in their case about, oh, you need to learn some design and go take some lessons and all that. Be supportive of each other because, yeah, do unto others. But you meant the golden ratio, which is a ratio of 1 to 1.618, loosely translated as 1/3 to 2/3. And there's where that rule of thirds comment came from. Also loosely translated as 2/5 to 3/5 or 0.4 to 0.6. And what that is usually if I were going to be making something and I was going to have, let's say, a feature ring on it, I would let that feature ring be above center so that maybe this was 1 and this was 1.618. So that's where that's coming from. And I am going to more loosely, translate that as a guideline to not duplicate dimensions. So the one thing I'm not going to do is split this in half and put my feature ring right in the middle. I'm going to put it either above or below center. And it doesn't really matter if you use your calculator and you go to 4 decimal places and you get your absolutely 1 to 1.618 and onward, and that doesn't really matter because our brains will enjoy the proportions with quite a bit of variation from that. That's why 1/3 to 2/3 works just as well as 1 to 1.618. Yeah, so but please do use the golden rule in your wood turning, and I definitely appreciate that. So, another question here. how I would pick a piece of crotch where the grain's going 2 or 3 different directions, and I do not have the ability to draw that or show that today. I'm sorry. I'd have to get some materials together that I was planning to do something else today. Um, so yeah, Helen, better late than never. What's going on here today? Well, I am going to turn a material I have not turned before, and it's a piece of butternut here, and I might end up being able to make something good for dinner after we're all done. But I got a couple of questions about working with different kinds of wood, and actually, John, I am not the expert on crotches. There are some people who are really good at working with crotch. Oh, not the expert on crotches. I didn't mean that the way it came out. No, crotch wood, where the two branches of the tree come together. I am not really an expert on it. So there are other people. All right. So I want to turn my piece of butternut here, and what I'm going to do first is put it between centers. And um, what do we got for characteristics on this piece of material? Well, one thing we have is it's got a little bit of a bark inclusion here, which I may be able to turn away, or it might end up being a nice void in the finished piece. Kind of an unfortunate place for a void. So I'm probably going to try to turn it away if I can. So, and then on the other end, uh, we've got a feature that does not lend itself well to putting the piece between centers. So I am going to, well, now I could be using the bandsaw, but I'm just going to cut off that end. I thought I'd try my bandsaw, but then I chickened out because I don't want to make that big of a mess today. So now I want to find the center, and it's really not conducive to using your standard center finder on here because it's too oddly shaped. So the way I'm going to find the center is to take a disc that's about the size, and I'm centering it up, and then I have a set of these discs from tiny to huge, as big as my lathe can handle. And I put a screw in it and let the screw protrude a little. So all I got to do is press it on there, and I get my center mounting hole. Now, this is a pretty soft wood here. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. Also, it's wet. So we probably will be making a gigantic mess in my shop today. All right, I could go for a bigger one here, but I'm going to just take this one and more or less center it up. I don't think that screw's protruding enough to make a good dent there. So, yeah. So Pat, what we're probably going to make here, or my plan anyway, is to make a baked stuffed squash for lunch today. You could make dessert. You could also, well, I've seen people use their shavings for baked fries, not probably with this material, but perhaps with this one. So we'll see how this goes. I always prepare my whatever I'm doing. I'm not a one to just wing it. I'm always well prepared, and I practice and all that. And well, today I am breaking the mold a little bit. And because of all the stuff I had going on this week and a demo till late last night, I did not have a chance to practice. So you are discovering along with me what is happening. Oh, and here's my friend Lyle. Hello, Lyle. We might be watching your system, your hollowing system, hollow something a little bit different. Oh, and Paul, hi, hello. I saw you before. We got the trio here, Paul and Pat and Helen. Great to have you guys. I'm glad you showed up. I appreciate it. All right, so what am I going to do to put this piece between centers? Well, I'm going to use my my Elio drive here, and wrong way. It goes in the headstock. This is a 3-pronged drive that will probably work really well on this soft material. I can adjust how much this center point pokes out and also how much these little ones poke out. So I'm going to put this in my headstock. And then in the tailstock, I'm going to start with this steb center. This is just a center I happen to like. It's got a retractable point, so it doesn't penetrate deeply into the wood. We'll see about this wood, though. It's a little bit different all around. And a serrated cup rim here. I'm just hoping that I can manage this without too much of a disaster. But hey, you know, wood grows on trees, and if this doesn't work out, you know, if it blows up on me or whatever, I'll grab another piece. I got a spare piece of butternut. I got me a spare whatever you want to call it too. And all right, so which end is which? I'm going to put the drive center on this end, and that's going to be my plan here is to make a hollow form. Now put this end tail center in this mark here, but this wood is so soft. It's really having a hard time. And this could be interesting, to say the least. All right, so my Elio drive it's going in, the center is going in a long way. Now I'm going to tighten these other two down. And I really would like the squash not to hit the faceplate, but in this particular case, it's fine. Oh, we got another question here. I love these questions. Thank you. Adding a wooden bow tie to a cracked bowl, and I could do that in a demo someday, and that's a great suggestion. Thank you. It's something I've never done, so I'm going to have to teach myself how to do it first. But yeah, that could be really fun. All right, so before I actually put a tool to a brand new material, I'm going to be kind of cautious. Oh, you know, I kind of wanted this to be centered up better than it is. So you see, that's really close to the tool rest at this end. And this end, I want to make a hollow form here. So I don't think the wall, I think there's a rotten center in this piece of wood, you know, with seeds in it. So I'm going to try to center it up a little better. And here versus here. Okay, so oh yes, okay. So there we have right here looks to be a place where I need to adjust it down a bit to get my piece to be more centered. And yes, Alan, absolutely on the face shield, I am anticipating this very wet wood to spray a big mess everywhere. And I want to know who's coming over to my shop and clean up after this. Okay, so we've still got a bit too closer to the tool rest here than it is, let's say, on the other side of center. So I'd like to take that area where it's real close. I'm trying to find the middle of it, and we'll move the centers down a little bit, or move the wood down a little bit, and try to get. See, this is such soft wood. I'm really kind of having a hard time repositioning my drive center. We still got to go down a bit. I think it's not repositioning well. The Elio doesn't really reposition as well as, like, say, a steb center does. So I'm not getting a real good repositioning. That might mean we have a void in our hollow form, and that would be okay with me. So you see this, it's dripping. This is very, very wet wood. So I'm going to start, first thing I want to do is put it in a chuck. So I'm putting it between centers here just to get it to where I can put it in the chuck. And we're going to start with the lathe at 0, turn it on, and crank the speed up very slowly. And I've got a lot to remove on this end too. How are we doing here? It's out of balance. I am not cranking the speed up very much here. And let's just see how it cuts. Oh, look at those shavings. How delightful. This is pretty cool. Lots of fun. And I'm taking a fairly aggressive cut here, and it's really responding nicely. I'm putting the chuck on this end here. Ooh, that's some wet stuff there. I don't want to get my electronics all covered with wet stuff here, but I think I'm going to have a cleanup to do later. So what do we got? I am going to use some spigot jaws here. Let's just see what size it is here. It looks like it's just under 3 inches, 75 millimeters. Probably what it is probably 72 or 70 millimeters. And here's the chuck I was hoping to use right here. Let me get out so you can see it. And you can kind of see it. Well, it's it's off the scene here, but looking at my jaws, and it looks like this jaw set will accommodate this size tenon. So no problem. Let's proceed with our tenon making here. And where are we? Oh, do I use my lathe as an apple peeler? Actually, one time someone gave me some kohlrabi from her garden, and I found those things to be so tough on the outside. I could not peel them with my standard peeler. So I put them on the lathe, seriously, just to eat them. And I peeled them on the lathe, and that worked really great. And another time I turned to cauliflower. But apples I haven't tried, although I do know someone who makes a lot of apple pies, and she has a thing that looks just like a pole lathe almost that she uses for that. And what is it? It is actually a butternut squash. I'm pretending it's a piece of wood here, though. Butternut squash is a kind of a pumpkin, and you can almost use it interchangeably with pumpkin in recipes. So same over here, yes. And absolutely stainless bedways, but I'm more worried about the electronics. The lathe and rust is not probably going to be a problem, but I sure hope I don't get a bunch of stringy chips all over my computers. They're kind of out of the way here. So, all right, so let's get to make, am I going to make an actual tenon here? I think I'm just going to put this spigot in the jaws, but I'd like to get it to be a little flatter on the end so I get more gripping power. And we're going to take, okay, so this is new material, and I just tried a planing cut with my gouge. Now I'm going to try a peeling cut. Let's see how that works. Peeling cut is where I contact the heel, and I'll raise the handle until I get chips, and then push in, and oh, delightful, delightful chips. Looks like the closer I get to center, the softer the chips, and at the outer area it's a little more a little stronger. So pretty good stuff. I think this is going to be ready to go in the chuck. And so far I'm pretty impressed. I thought I might be just going to have a big disaster here, and of course, you know, I may yet have quite a disaster. We shall see. But all in good fun. Get the LEO drive out, and I'll put my chuck on. This is a Vicmark chuck with some deep spigot jaws. They are actually 2 inches deep or 50 millimeters approximately. Okay, so question here, do I do regular maintenance on my lathe? And um, I have, yeah, okay, I'm kind of guilty of not necessarily babying my machinery. The one thing that I'll do to the lathe all the time, though, is wax the bed, because that makes a big difference. And I'm going to need to wax the bed big time after this little job. And another thing I'll do is my chucks, the mechanism gets dust in it and the scroll gets dust in it. So I'm regularly blowing out the dust from my chucks and spraying them with a dry graphite type lubricant. So, okay, now to clarify the materials we have available today, Duncan, the, the other thing that I showed, that's this one here. This is not a squash. This is a root vegetable, and it's I guess it's technically a sweet potato. There are 5 or 6 varieties of them in the grocery store, and this one looked like a good shape to maybe make a weed pot out of. So we'll see how things go and how much time I have, but that should turn a little differently. And I have actually turned, well, I haven't turned a sweet potato before. I've turned potatoes, but okay. So now we're going to put this tenon in the chuck. And I wanted the tenon to be fairly big, but I also like to have chosen a jaw set where the jaws are mostly closed, so I get a good possibility of some grip around the circumference of my piece. And then we'll bring up the tail stock, and you look at what a mess the drive center made just because it's real soft here. And hopefully that'll be a good place. Let's well, I guess I'll just tighten up the chuck now. What I like to do is finger tighten my chuck, bring up the tailstock and tighten it the rest of the way. And this is some really soft wood. So the chuck is mashing into the fibers really seriously. And I don't have a particularly great grip on things. Oh, and it's not particularly well centered either, but that's okay. We're going to true it up right now, and we'll get what we get out of this piece of material. When you try new wood, you just never know what you're going to get. And I'm not getting sprayed with water, and yet I am going to try to keep from my face getting all covered with gook. And as risk assessment goes, this is fairly low risk here because the wood is not hard enough to likely hurt me if I got hit with it flying off the lathe. Oh, this is nice. I can just get rid of those. Anytime I have a rough, out of balance piece of wood to turn, the first thing, if I want a trued up symmetrical shape, the first thing I like to do is to true it up to see what I have to work with in my piece. So that's fairly well trued up, and I'm looking here at, well, it's not quite all the way trued up, and it doesn't look like it's going to make a good void. I could have left a little bark on there, but it wasn't going to look really like I wanted. So from here now, I can pretty much shape what I'd like to shape for my hollow vessel. And we'll do the complete outside shape first, and then we'll hollow it. And we may find some interesting stuff. Oh, let's do a little bit of a cove at the rim. I'll get closer here too. Oh, yuck. the chips are proving to be, this is like turning resin here. Chips wrapping around everything. So who's coming over to help me clean up after this is done? I hope somebody does. And we'll just go to make a kind of a nice hollow form shape. And I don't want to get too thin down there at the headstock end before I'm done with the hollowing. We can do a better job on the shape though. You know, wood is wood, and the methods of cutting are pretty much the same no matter what kind of wood you have. But if you have something like this here with such differing density, it becomes kind of difficult to turn. So I'm ready for hollowing. I will do more shaping down here after. So let's get the hollowing rig up. Before I do that, I'm going to start the opening. And we've got a mess here. Do we ever? So I'll finish out the top shape here, just with my bowl gouge. Now I'm unsupported, no tailstock. So we're seeing how this is going to go. And this is the next vulnerable moment with this thing. I was also, you know, whenever I try out a new material, I like to see what characteristics it has and how the different tools work. And yes, this is exactly the idea that I had originally when I thought about this. But this particular piece of wood, I want to hollow it through a larger opening than the diameter of a carrot. So I'm going to do a carrot finial on something else another time. Not today, though. I don't have any carrots. So let's see, just for fun, what happens when we try to drill this out with a Forstner. That's what I usually do when I do a hollow form. And that's a good size. Let me see what we got here. This one is a 1 5/8, which is about 40 millimeters. And so how is that 40 gonna look on here? Oh, that'll be great. That'll be just what I want. So we're going to see how well it drills. We first tried the bowl gouge and then tried a peeling cut with the parting tool. Now I'm going to see how well it drills. And yeah, I should have put some kind of protector underneath all this, but you know, I got done with my demo at 10 p.m. and I just wasn't into it. So I didn't. It would have been complicated anyhow because of the construction of this lathe bed. I would have had to put a bunch of little pieces in between all the ribs on there, and I just didn't do it. But next time. All right, so let's slow the lathe down for the drilling here. And we'll just see. I'm going to stand a bit off to the side in case we get flying gook here. Oh, and look at that. We've got chips coming off the spur of the drill. Maybe. It's really not drilling all that nicely. This big wide spur on the Forstner is really not cutting very well. It's just sort of mashing this wide spur here. So I'm going to give up on this idea and use a spindle gouge for that. I'm going to try the Ray Key grind of spindle gouge that I like when I'm hollowing out the middle of my little boxes. And yeah, I should have had a face shield on there too. It's always a good idea with material you've never used before to sort of up the PPE use. And I may not always use a face shield, but this is a great example of when I really ought to. So I'm just hollowing out the opening with this gouge, anticipating. Oh, and there we are. Look at this. Nature has done a little bit of the hollowing for me. So let's see what we can do with this tool here and in starting our hollowing. It looks like I'm going to have a pretty nice hollow form here. We'll get a lot of this rotten center. You know how it is when you got a hollow log and it's rotten in the middle and all this yuck comes out of there. Yeah, you just never know what you're going to get with a piece of wood, do you? Oh, and yeah, Alan, I am going to have this on the market shortly as a hollowing tool for a very specific purpose. And indeed, John, I do need a face shield, and I've been using one. I am not wearing one at the moment, but I don't have a machine running. And I will admit that in the kitchen, when I am doing this operation, I typically feel like a face shield is not necessary. So I'm, risk assessment. That doesn't mean you do the same thing all the time. It means you take a thought to what you might be running into as far as risks go and act accordingly. Okay, now I think I'm ready to do some hollowing with my hollowing rig. And you won't be able to see this completely here, but what I'm going to do is push my tailstock over to the very end and bring up the window for the hollowing rig. Being as this is a robust, I can just roll my tailstock down and bring over the hollowing window. And I'm using my Lyle Jameson hollowing rig here today. Another part of this discovery process is going to be what sort of hollowing tool cuts this material well. And I'm not sure what I'm going to find. Just a little bit of detail about this rig. I want to be sure that once I put the D handle through the window here, I'll drop this pin through that hole so that I can't pull it through accidentally. A little safety feature on a hollowing rig like this. And I need the tool rest back enough. Now, I've got my laser hooked up here. And the laser makes it really difficult to see with the camera what's going on here. I might be able to turn it like this and then point the laser back over. I'm going to set the laser dot. Yeah, that's a little easier to see. I'm going to just put the laser dot right on the tip of the tool. So you see that here. It's just right on the tip of the tool. The camera's not picking that up accurately. What I see is just a little red dot right on the end of that cutter. And when I'm roughing out and I'm not thinking I need walls any thinner than, let's say, half an inch, 13 millimeters, then I typically do it this way, because when I put the tool in, I can kind of judge my wall thickness, and we don't have much wall thickness really. Am I going to go deeper? Yeah, I'm going to go deeper, and I'll have to readjust the cutter and the laser for that. So let's just see how or if this cutter works on this material. We're going to start at the opening. And we may have problems. Indeed. We shall see. Might not be stable. Yeah, might not be. And yes, indeed, Helen, I will be offering a special on those tools for the people that are early adopters and willing to take a risk on it. So yes, thank you very much. Oh, dust collection. Oh my God. Well, first of all, I haven't seen any dust yet. But second of all, I don't want all that in my dust collector. So I actually have my dust collector hood covered. There's a cover over it. Can you see that here? Maybe. Well, let me get this out of there first. No, you can't see it. So anyway, take my word for it. I've got, let's see, we'll go here. No, we'll go here. That's good, I think, maybe. Hollowing is difficult to show on camera because it's just so much of a large field of view. The laser won't fall off. Well, that is the technicality for adjusting the laser is you're supposed to want to have the laser mechanism right directly above the cutter so that it points down right at the cutter for best accuracy. And I find that there is a lot that accuracy it is most meaningful when the walls are thicker. When you get down to your 1/8 inch 3 millimeter walls, you don't have as much inaccuracy as you do when you have thick walls, like in a rough out. So I don't fall the laser dot over the edge. I just use it on the tip of the cutter for a guideline. Today, what I have done though, is I have deliberately made the laser go in quite a slant, because otherwise this part of it is right on top of what you're seeing and you can't see what the cutter is doing. So I did it this way for the camera today. And I understand that that's really not your best laser setup. So the other thing I want to do here is kind of put the cutter sort of on center line. And so we'll start with this, and let's just see how the cut works. I have no idea if this is or isn't going to even work at all. I'll turn the lathe on at 0, and we'll give us a little speed. Oh, the wood is warping. Look at that. The form is already out around. I'm going to put a little shape on the opening first just to see how things go. And that's working okay. And then I'll make a straight bit on the opening. And now we'll start trying to get around here and do some hollowing with this cutter. I need to adjust the cutter because what I've got isn't getting in. Oh, look at that. That looks like fun. The setting of the cutter that I have is not getting into where I want. So I've got to readjust this. Oh, and by the way, if y'all want to see how this rig really works, tune into Lyle's IRD on Saturday. He'll show you all the stuff that I'm doing wrong here, particularly with measuring. So again, I'm going to put the laser dot right on the end of the cutter, and I have modified this one where I've got a laser module that I bought from a company that's no longer in business, and I hooked up a little battery pack over here. Show you over here. Here. So there are a couple of AAA batteries in this pack with a switch on it, and I do prefer that, though I'm trying to get used to the pen type laser with the little ring to keep the switch on, and that works too. I just used to have problems with those lasers dying all the time 25 years ago, and I switched to this method, and I've preferred it. I also will mention that going with a cheap laser that you can get for $5 is not worth it. Buy a good one because it'll stay working longer. Those cheap ones would die very quickly. Is this wood? It's butternut is what it is. It's a squash. It's a butternut squash. Yep. Happy Thanksgiving, says Michael. Indeed. Well, hey, squash is not just for Thanksgiving anymore. Now we can have squash any day of the year. And I just changed the cutter's position there so that I now can work this area here right under the rim and get some undercut to that shape. And that looks pretty good. I'm getting a pretty decent cut with this stuff. Now I want to see, the first thing I did was I did this kind of large diameter area because that's how I had the laser set. Now I just did the curve at the rim. And the next laser setting I want is going to be for doing the bottom. So I'll change the cutter's position again so that I can get down in the bottom. And we'll again put the laser dot right on the end of the cutter. And this way I can more or less see where I'm going. The thing about having the laser dot on the end of the cutter instead of trying to use it like you're supposed to measure the wall thickness accurately is that this tells me no matter where on the wall of the vessel I'm cutting, it tells me where the cutter is. So it allows me to not have to keep resetting the laser. And I like that for doing rough outs because I'm not that critical on the wall thickness. And I can just, one laser setting does the whole piece most of the time, or sometimes I have to do it in 3 settings like this one. For a shape like this, I would. All right, so I'm very happy with our hollowing. So I'm gonna say, okay, that's done. I don't sand the insides of my hollow forms anyway, but one of the things about this new material that I wanted to try is I wonder how well it sands. Anybody want to give a guess on that? we are getting wobble. I think there are internal stresses in the wood, and sanding softwoods, yeah, you have to sand them as much, but sometimes, especially highly resinous woods like this one, sometimes the sanding it gums up the paper. So let's just try this. I'm even going to wear a face shield when I'm sanding here, just for, let's see what we get. And if I turn the lathe real slow, the wobble's not going to matter. We'll start with some 180 grit. Let's see how it goes. Maybe I should have started with 80. Oh, look at this. The sandpaper it's wet sanding. That's what it's doing. It's wet sanding. Oh, not bad. How about I was thinking Abranet. This is mesh, it's usually really good for stuff that gums up easily. Oh, yeah, this is quite nice. Although I need to start with something coarser than 180 on this. Oh yeah, I'm excited to try this, a 40 grit flap disc and an angle grinder. I think that would make short work of this project, like as in make short work of finish this project. Sandpaper loads up very quickly with this species of wood. No, actually, the sandpaper is not loading up at all. I was expecting it to load up, but what it's doing is more like wet sanding. And look, the little grit things, the shavings are going right through the mesh. I just need a little coarser grit here. But this is actually, I'm amazed. It's much better than I was expecting. Okay, so what are we going to do now? I need my tailstock. So let's get that done. I have not tried a scraper yet on this. Oh, well, I'll have to just try it down there a little further down. And what I'm going to do now is get back my tailstock, put it on the swing away thing here. Get the tailstock back. And what I want, I didn't get ready, so I'm going to go grab it. I want to use a cone on a live center. And I've got a pretty good assortment of those things. Is that going to be good? Yeah, that's a good cone. And I'm using my robust live center here, which has a 3/4 10 thread on it. And I'll screw on this. This is a rubber Chucky device here. He makes a whole bunch of things, usually out of this some kind of resin plastic stuff. Oh, and Michael has a great suggestion for the finish. Indeed, butter and brown sugar and maybe a little bit of heat treating would be perfect. So yeah, stand by for the finished product eventually. So I want to stabilize this opening here. I've got electronics and cords everywhere. Oh, that's what. So I'm bringing up the tailstock to, can we go over anymore? No, we gotta get back here. There's our whole piece. I'm bringing up the tailstock just to stabilize the opening with gentle pressure, because this is such soft wood that I don't want to push too hard and distort it or perhaps crack it. And now I'm going to finish off the bottom. And, if you've ever seen me do a hollow form, you know that I most of the time would like to reverse chuck it. But today, since I'm really kind of out of time, I am just going to part it off. And that'll allow me to try another tool on here. it's distorted a bit. It's gone out around a bit, so I'm having to, I guess the wood is drying. That could be what it is. So I'm going to have to blend, and I'm kind of truing up the outside a bit here and blending it in with the part that I'm cutting here. And then we'll just part it off right here. I have really no idea. Oh, maybe I should have checked my bottom depth. There's a good idea. Let's use a depth finder here and just see where the bottom is. Okay, I've got lots of room in the bottom. I could make it shorter if I wanted, but I'm more looking to make a nice shape. So, oh yes, and you know, there's never just one perfect finish for any piece of wood or any hollow form. And so a little real maple syrup, there's another good idea for a finish. Sometimes you also need to apply a bit of heat there with the finishing materials we're talking about. So I'm going to use my parting tool. Oh yes. If we're going to get into this, a beetroot would make a nice accent, and a carrot finial. Oh, I love it. I love it. So we're going to have to do this again, I think, this vegetable business. I'm going to, whoa. I'm not going to get away with this. Not so easily. I think what I need to do is keep the tailstock up and part in. Maybe I need less speed too. What's happening is it's so soft that the centrifugal force was causing it to whip because it's just really not very strong. Now, I did say I wanted to try a scraper. So let's see how the negative rake scraper works on this material. Just clean up this down here with our negative rake scraper with a fresh sharpening burr. And it looks like what we're getting is, did it improve the finish is my question. Well, it really did make a nice finish down here where I'm going to need a lot less sanding. So that was successful, but I don't think I could remove much material really with that negative rake scraper. So what I'm going to have to do here is plan on parting it most of the way with that tailstock up, and then getting a saw to do the last bit. I don't bring a saw with me, so I'll go find one right over here. We'll use our Dazuki saw. This is kind of a screwed up Dazuki, so I don't mind using it on this. And I think I need to get rid of this tailstock. But look at how wobbly it is. It's really soft wood. And there we have it. There we have it. I'm going to need to do a little work on that nub there, which I think I will use my bowl gouge for as a carving tool. Oh, nice job. So the stuff carves really nicely. Maybe we need to get somebody who does carving to put some texture on the outside. And this wood is so wet that every little bit of dirt and grime is getting all over it. So this is, okay, we're going to have a finish here from my hands. No, it's not working. What we are is we are done. And I think I can put it here. There we have it. Oh, and indeed, this one really does call for using a jam chuck. I like raspberry personally, so I think raspberry. Oh, but orange marmalade would go very nicely with this form, wouldn't it? Yeah. Uh, am I going to paint it? Well, I'm really much more a fan of an oil finish, but could be inlay. Now there's a great idea. Uh, cuts like butter. Not indeed it does. Uh, put it in my kiln to dry it the rest of the way. Yeah, I think so, and I think I'll set it at 350 F, and I'll put the finish on first so that it'll kind of help cure the finish quickly. And I might have to put some shavings inside to keep it from drying too fast. Maybe with a little bit of some of that maple sugar and butter and yeah. Oh, there's a good idea. Inlay it with mini marshmallows. That would be fun. Indeed. So we now have a uh, a new material to work with, and I'm excited about this new discovery. I can't wait to see what all of you guys are going to make for this. If I had a little more time, uh, I could make a lid out of what's remaining in the chuck here, but I kind of like that beetroot carrot idea. So we'll have to do this again. Put some light in it. That's another suggestion. Um, we could get more light. We have, believe me, we have uh, gadgets and gizmos galore around here. And I can put a little more light on the subject with this one. And now you see the profile very nicely. Indeed. And yeah, that was what I just was thinking. Actually, I thought about this earlier that I could make a lid from the piece that's in the chuck and even maybe a little finial on there, and that would be great. But I'm trying to keep my session to an hour, and we're 6 minutes over now. So I'm thinking we'll do the carrot finial next time. Next time I need a little bit of entertainment. Yeah, watermelon bowl. That would be fun. The watermelon, now that would be something where it's already more or less hollow, just like this one was a lot hollow. Um, LED light inside. Oh, and how about perhaps some piercing? I wonder, Carter, no, not Carter. He's not into this kind of stuff. Uh, next time use Durlan. You're going to have to tell me what that is, Alan. Um, pierce it and put a light inside. And what happens if I do I'm going to just get that light out of the way and I'll put a light inside. And do you see it shine? Yeah, you can kind of see it shine through the wall. It's not the greatest. I think that the best effect here we'll just leave that in there for fun. The best effect here would be to pierce it and then put the light inside and mount a light like one of those little LED tea light inserts so that it's right in the middle. This one, the light doesn't stay put and it only shines in one direction. So, yeah, all these ideas. Wow, I just love it. We're going to have a lot more things to work on in the future. My trackpad doesn't like being all wet. Where did the cursor go? Okay. Oh, a Duralan is a fruit. Okay, well, get me one all the way from Thailand, and we'll see about that. Yeah, the trackpad is tired of this. It's the king of fruit. Oh, and Andy, I guess it must be from your part of the world where you grew up, being familiar with that. And um, The trackpad is really not happy with this situation. 40/40 grind on the spoon. I have a very special grind on that tool, and it's a secret. I am not going to reveal it until I have the product ready for market. So stay tuned, folks, for the big unveiling someday. And what he's talking about there is, where did it go? The tool I was using for hollowing, and this is it here. Here, here. Some of my buttons are not functioning today. I suspect everything is tired of this yucky stuff all over everything. So here is the new hollowing tool that I unveiled, and yes, it appears that it is indeed a parabolic grind, or maybe it's an elliptical grind. But at any rate, it's a secret high-tech grind that only I can provide, and this is the tool you need for hollowing your butternuts. Wipe the pad in my fingertips. The trackpad doesn't like me to be wet. Yeah, probably not. I could always use this one. I can always use this one. And yes, Alan, the Forstner, it didn't even get as far as the seeds. It was just basically mashing the wood, and it wasn't cutting it because there was too much blade on the drill in contact with this very soft material, and it was just pushing the material out of the way instead of cutting it. Maybe I needed a different grind on my my Forstner to accommodate this very soft material. So yes, as it turns out, the Forstner was the puree tool. And well, Charlie, I'm not sure you're going to be able to afford it. These are going to be very exclusive, expensive tools now. But I'll make you a special deal as soon as we get them done. Heating it to dry won't work. Oh, you're right. Oh, but it might make it more tasty. I did one time turn something. What was it? It was a root vegetable, rutabaga or something like. No, those are carrot looking. Some kind of root vegetable, and I put it in my kiln thinking maybe it would dry out. It shriveled up so much it was just like it went from something like this to just nothing in very little time. Now, I wouldn't want to be guaranteeing there are no bugs, because you can find some pretty creative bug action in a lot of these organic materials here. So luckily, we didn't find any bugs. Oh, now freezing, that would do it. But once it thaws out, it's going to be mushy, because if you ever tried freezing an uncooked squash, it doesn't really defrost well. Flash boiling, or whatever you call that, parboiling, works really well. Oh, yes. All the cool kids are going to be doing this. And I'm waiting to see the next one of you guys who does something like this. And okay, if anybody got a serious question, we could end on a serious note here. But we are going to end and move on. And I'm going to have to get my lunch ready here. Serious questions? Anyone? Well, it looks like today was not the day for serious. I'm okay with that. And I am going to say good night to y'all. It is actually in the middle of the day today, so it's more like lunchtime. And I will see y'all on the next go round in about 2 weeks. Remember to join in tomorrow for my sharing session. Sign up on my website right here, or you can just go to my website and find the subscribe button. And You'll get the link 2 hours before start time tomorrow morning. And then Lyle on Saturday, and we will catch y'all on the rebound somewhere online. Bye-bye.